The timing tells you everything you need to know. Hours after United States forces seized Nicolas Maduro from his presidential compound in Caracas and flew him to Brooklyn in handcuffs, Katie Miller posted an image on social media that sent shockwaves through European capitals. The image showed Greenland, the vast Arctic territory, draped in the American flag. Above it, a single word, soon. Katie Miller is not just any social media user. She's the wife of Stephen Miller, Trump's deputy chief of staff and the architect of much of the administration's most aggressive domestic and foreign policy. When she posts something like this, the world pays attention. And when she posts it just hours after the United States military removed a foreign head of state from power, the message becomes impossible to ignore. Denmark's response was swift and unequivocal. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen released a statement that was remarkable for its directness. It makes absolutely no sense to talk about the United States needing to take over Greenland, she wrote. The U.S. has no right to annex any of the 3 countries in the Danish kingdom. She went further, urging the United States to stop the threats against a historically close ally and against another country and another people who have very clearly said that they are not for sale. The language was diplomatic, but the message was clear. Denmark was drawing a line. Greenland's own Prime Minister, Frederik Nielsen, was even more pointed. In a statement released Sunday, he said, "That's enough now." He described the notion of U.S. control over Greenland as a fantasy and made clear that his patience had run out. No more pressure, no more insinuations, no more fantasies of annexation. Nielsen declared, "We are open to dialogue, we are open to discussions, but this must happen through the proper channels and with respect for international law." His frustration was palpable, and it reflected a growing sense in Copenhagen and Nuuk that what had once seemed like outlandish bluster from Trump was beginning to look like something more serious. The reason for that shift in perception is obvious. 24 hours earlier, the world watched as U.S. forces carried out an operation that until recently would have been considered unthinkable. They bombed Venezuelan military installations, disabled air defenses, breached a fortified presidential compound, and extracted a sitting head of state. If Trump could do that to Venezuela, why not Greenland? That's the question now being asked in every European capital, and it's a question that nobody wants to answer out loud. Trump himself wasted no time connecting the dots. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One as he flew back from Florida to Joint Base Andrews, Trump was asked about Greenland. His response was direct and uncompromising. "We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security," he said. He dismissed Danish efforts to defend the territory with a mocking comment. "You know what Denmark did for security lately? They added one more dog sled." Then he painted a picture of imminent threat. "Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place," he claimed, though he provided no evidence for this assertion. "Denmark is not going to be able to do it, I can tell you." In an earlier interview with The Atlantic magazine published Sunday, Trump had been even more explicit. "We do need Greenland, absolutely," he said. "We need it for defense." The language is worth noting. Not that the United States would like to have Greenland, or that it would be beneficial to have access, but that we need it. That kind of language transforms a diplomatic preference into something closer to a strategic imperative, and strategic imperatives have a way of justifying actions that would otherwise be unthinkable. This is not the first time Trump is fixated on Greenland. During his first term, he floated the idea of purchasing the territory from Denmark, a suggestion that was met with bemusement and rejection in Copenhagen. Trump then canceled a planned state visit to Denmark after Prime Minister Frederiksen called the idea absurd. When Trump returned to the White House in January 2025, the Greenland rhetoric returned with him, but this time with a more aggressive edge. Last month, the administration named Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry as special envoy to Greenland, a move that prompted anger and concern in Denmark. Landry has been explicit about his goal, saying he would work to make Greenland a part of the U.S. The appointment wasn't subtle, it was a signal. So what exactly is the appeal of Greenland? The official justification is always national security, and there's no question that Greenland occupies an extraordinarily strategic position. Sitting between Europe and North America, straddling the Arctic, the island is home to Pituffik Space Base, formerly known as Thule Air Base, one of the most important installations in the ballistic missile defense system. The base has been operated by the United States since 1943, and it plays a critical role in early warning systems and space surveillance. From a purely military perspective, Greenland is already integral to American defense infrastructure. But there's another dimension to Trump's interest, and it's one that gets less attention in his public statements but is impossible to ignore. Greenland is rich in minerals critical to modern technology and national security. The island holds deposits of rare earth elements, uranium, zinc, and other resources that are essential for everything from smartphones to military hardware. Currently, China dominates global rare earth production, giving Beijing enormous leverage over supply chains. Securing access to Greenland's mineral wealth would reduce American dependence on Chinese exports and provide a strategic buffer in what Trump and his advisors see as an intensifying great power competition. There's also oil and natural gas. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates that Greenland's offshore waters may contain 17.5 billion barrels of crude oil and more than 4 trillion cubic meters of natural gas. Those are not trivial numbers. In the context of Trump's broader approach to energy policy, which emphasizes dominance and control over key resources, Greenland represents an enormous prize. And when you combine strategic location with mineral wealth and energy reserves, you start to understand why Trump keeps coming back to this. The problem, of course, is that Greenland is not for sale. It's not an uninhabited rock in the middle of the ocean. It's home to 57,000 people who have their own government, their own identity, and their own aspirations for the future. Greenland has had extensive self-government since 1979, with Denmark retaining control only over defense and foreign policy. While most Greenlanders favor eventual full independence from Denmark, opinion polls consistently show overwhelming opposition to becoming part of the United States. They don't want to trade Danish oversight for American control. They want sovereignty. Denmark has made its position equally clear. Frederiksen pointed out in her statement that Denmark and Greenland are NATO members, which means they are covered by the alliance's security guarantee. An attack on Greenland would, in theory, trigger Article 5 of the NATO treaty, obligating all member states to come to Denmark's defense. She also noted that a defense agreement already grants the United States wide access to Greenland for military purposes. In other words, Washington already has what it needs from a security perspective. What Trump is talking about is not securing access, it's securing ownership. The European reaction has been one of alarm. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer was asked about the situation and made clear that only Denmark and Greenland could decide the territory's future. Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark must decide the future of Greenland, and only Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark, he said. It was a polite but firm rejection of the idea that the United States has any say in the matter. European Commission spokesperson Paula Pinho rejected Trump's claim that the EU needs the U.S. to control Greenland, calling it certainly not the EU's position and saying she was unaware of any discussions with Washington on the issue. But here's where the situation gets genuinely dangerous. Before the Venezuela operation, European leaders could dismiss Trump's Greenland talk as bluster, the kind of provocative rhetoric he's known for but rarely acts on. After Venezuela, that calculus has changed. If Trump was willing to use military force to remove Maduro and seize control of Venezuelan oil infrastructure, what's to stop him from doing something similar in Greenland? The answer, theoretically, is that Greenland is part of a NATO ally, and attacking it would shatter the alliance. But Trump has shown repeatedly that he views alliances as transactional arrangements, not sacred commitments. And if he believes Greenland is essential to American security, would he really let a treaty obligation stand in his way? Denmark's military intelligence service has, for the first time, classified the United States as a security risk. That's an extraordinary development. Denmark and the United States have been close allies for decades. The fact that Danish intelligence now views Washington as a potential threat tells you how seriously this situation is being taken in Copenhagen. There are reports of increased defense spending, discussions about bolstering Greenland's minimal military presence, and contingency planning for scenarios that until recently would have seemed absurd.